Thank you everyone for joining us this evening. We have Rashi Shah from the University of British Columbia and Shreya Poddar from Ryerson University with us today. It's really exciting to have them on our webinar series. Before we get started, I'm going to quickly introduce myself. My name is Namita Mehta and I'm the president of the Red Pen. The Red Pen is an independent education consulting company that has been around for over 9 years. Besides helping students with their undergraduate application process, we also do help students at the MBA level, the postgrad level, at boarding school level, and even helping families identify the right day school for their children. So the whole gamut of educational services. We also do work with schools in India and globally to help them set up their counseling departments. And Kim Dixit, my business partner and the CEO and co-founder of the Red Pen, is also on the call, and she's going to be supporting me this evening. Just a second. Sorry, guys. So yeah, before we get started, I'm quickly going to say a couple of things. That if you have any questions, please put them in the question and answer box, and we will get to them. The webinar is going to start off by Shreya speaking a little bit about Ryerson University, followed by Rashi, after which I will ask some questions. And definitely get to your questions and answers. So let's get started. Thank you so much. Shreya, go ahead and share your screen.
So again, I will just introduce myself. I'm Shreya Poddar and I'm the Senior Recruitment Advisor for Ryerson University. To talk a little bit about the university and its location, the university is in downtown Toronto. It's right in the heart of the city. That's how we like to address it. About Toronto, Toronto is the largest city in Canada. It is the most safest city and in North America in terms of location, and for parents usually have a concern about the location of the universities that the students are going to go into. It is the second largest financial center and third largest tech center in North America. So this is a little bit about the city for you to get a rough idea about what it is like. Moving on to the university. So we have about 45,000 students on campus, of which 36,000 students are undergraduate students. We are a highly undergraduate focused university, and we have international students coming from approximately 120 different countries across the world. In terms of programs, so we have the Faculty of Arts, Communication and Design, Community Service, Engineering, Architectural Sciences, Science, and Ted Rogers School of Management. I would like to shed some light on some of these programs that we offer. So let's talk about the Faculty of Communication and Design. It has a few very unique programs that we offer. The first one being the Graphic Communications Management program. So it's a program where students who are interested in learning how to do brand building and marketing and understanding all aspects of the design and communication industry, it's all meshed in together, and that's what the degree entails. We are also introducing music, a bachelor's in music for the next intake. So students that might be interested in that can look into that. Coming to talking a little bit about the Faculty of Engineering, we are one of the 3 universities in Canada that offer a bachelor's in aerospace engineering. So students that are interested in aeronautics, Ryerson is the place to apply to. And lastly, I would like to talk a little bit about Ted Rogers School of Management. Ted Rogers School of Management offers the highest number of undergraduate business degrees in Canada. So students that are looking to start studying business from the bachelor's level, you can apply to Ted Rogers. And the other faculty that we have started from fall 2020 is the Faculty of Law. We like to address ourselves as an urban community. Like I mentioned earlier, we are right in the heart of the city. So it is an urban campus. What are the things that we offer as a community and as a university are the one thing we talk a lot about and we hear from our schools and our teachers and our counselors is about experiential learning. So as a university, we imbibe it a lot in our teachings as well. One of those examples would be students that are studying in the Faculty of Communication and Design. the first week of their classes, they are given a microphone and a video camera, and they are asked to go out on the streets of Toronto and make a video of their version of what they see the city to be. Another example would be the urban planning and environment and sustainability programs that we offer. So Toronto as a city is a green roof by law city, which basically means every new construction that is happening in Toronto has to have an urban farm. The idea is to soak up all the water from the storms and, to reduce the urban heat. So we do have a half-acre urban farm on our engineering building, and all the produce from there is used in our cafeterias and on our local farmers market, and students are a part of it while they are studying and they work there as well. Another very key aspect and something that is apart from your curriculum that we offer is something called as zone learning. Zone learning is something that is between these 10 zones that we offer, and it is across all of the faculties. So it is a place where you can go with a business idea, and it could just be an idea. It does not have to be thought of, and it can be half-baked. You go in and you will have mentors and industry experts who will help you nurture that idea. You could go there and just participate or be a part of somebody's existing startup or work for an alumni's existing company, or you could help build your own. If I'm studying business, but for example, I have an idea for, say, the clean energy zone. So I go work with those people and work towards it. So by the time I graduate, I would probably graduate maybe with a business on my hands. Our most sought after zone is the DMZ, the Digital Media Zone. It is the world's #1 university-based seed incubator. And as of last year itself, we have funded about 450 plus companies, startups. And we do have a tie-up. The DMZ has a tie-up with the Bombay Stock Exchange. So we have a lot of entrepreneurs in Bombay and across India who use that space, and they then do a collaboration, and then they come to Ryerson for 6 months to further work on their startups. And this is apart from your curriculum. So this is entirely voluntary. If you as a person is interested, please, I highly recommend to be a part of it. Another interesting aspect is global learning, so which basically is a study abroad semester. We have partnerships with 130 universities across 76 countries, and it is faculty based. So within your 4 years, depending on whichever faculty you are in, you can apply to the partner universities and go and do a study abroad semester as well. Students always do want to know about the sports that are there, aren't there on campus. If not, we have 2 fitness and athletic centers on campus. This is our newly opened fitness center. It is the Matamé Athletic Center, which was previously the Maple Leaf Gardens, and now it is Ryerson property. And from cricket to soccer to intramural sports, we have it all. So there is all of that is taken care of. And the other fitness center that we have is in our quadrangle, which is in the basement of our main campus. In terms of dorms, and I think that is a major concern that everybody does have being a downtown campus, is that, the cost of living and how far are the residence halls. All of our 4 residence halls are 5 minutes walking distance from campus, and all international students are given first preference when they're applying. So it really depends from if you want to stay in a studio style apartment to, on a 2 people, 3 people, 4 people sharing basis. That's entirely up to you when you fill your application, but that is your choice to make. Just going over the cost to consider. So tuition fees are roughly between 28,000 to 39,000 Canadian dollars, depending on the program. And accommodation, again, depending on what sharing basis you take, will be roughly around 16,000 to 17,000 dollars. That includes your meal plans and then your miscellaneous expenses. So if we put an average, if I'm calculating, you can go with a ballpark of around 50,000 Canadian dollars for a year, which would be your tuition, your accommodation, and your miscellaneous expenses included. Coming to scholarships, we do offer all 2 kinds of international scholarships, and they both have to be applied for, and they are merit based. The first one is the President's Scholarship. and that is the highest scholarship that we offer, which is $10,000 per year. And the other one is an international merit scholarship, which is a one-time $5,000 scholarship. And there is a deadline for this scholarship application, which is the 1st of March, 2021. In terms of admissions and how to apply, the two ways that you can apply to Ryerson is either via OUAC or through the Common App. As we have a lot of international students across multiple countries, we are well versed with all of the academic grading processes across all of these, as well as the state and national boards that we have in India. So if you are wanting to know any specific information about what grades or points or percentages that is required for you to be eligible to apply to Ryerson, you can just drop me an email and I will be more than happy to send you the more specific information and the prerequisites for the course that you're interested in. Lastly, we usually do have 2 campus tours every year. Given the current situation, for obvious reasons, it was not possible. The one was in March. So we did a virtual open house. And if any of y'all are interested, I'd be more than happy to share program-specific recordings that you could hear and get a little bit more insight from the faculties of the programs that you're interested in. Lastly, you can follow us on all of the social media platforms. We are available. You can see our regular updates and see what Ryerson has to offer. And I hope this was insightful and helpful. That is my contact information. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shreya. That was great. Some real valuable information there. Rashi, go ahead.
Just a second. Sorry, I just realized I was mute. I'm just going to share my screen. Hi, everyone. My name is Rashi. I am an international student recruiter and advisor for the University of British Columbia. Apart from that, I'm also an alumni of UBC. I myself graduated in 2013, so I'm going to provide a mixed perspective today. I'm going to start off by introducing you to the world of UBC so that you can better understand if it is the right place for you. So moving you from the east coast of Canada to the west coast of Canada, we're located in the beautiful province of British Columbia, and is known to have one of the mildest winters in Canada. So we're not knee-deep in snow. As much as I would have absolutely loved it, we don't have any cute resident polar bears on our campus. A lesser known fact about UBC is that we have 2 campuses, and they're both located on traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the First Nations people of Canada. So our first campus was set up in Vancouver in the early 1900s, and it sits perched beautifully on a peninsula, and it's surrounded by the Pacific Ocean on 3 sides, as you can see on the top left image. It's a sprawling campus, so it's spread over 3,000 acres, and we have been popularly voted as one of the most beautiful campus universities in North America and in Canada. Owing to the increase in popularity and interest and demand for UBC, we set up our second campus over a decade ago in the Okanagan Valley. This campus is about an hour flight or a 4-hour drive from Vancouver. In comparison to our Vancouver campus, this is a mid-sized campus, and that allows for a more close-knit sense of community to exist both amongst our students as well as professors. It's important to note that whether you choose to apply to UBC, Vancouver, or Okanagan, both the campuses mirror each other in the quality of learning, teaching, education, the access to opportunities remain the same. It's just that you have to decide as a student what is a better fit for you. What sort of a university experience do you want? Some students prefer and thrive in a smaller, on a smaller campus, whereas other students feel more at home on a large bustling campus. So we provide both the options for you. Talking about feeling at home, we have been consistently recognized as one of the most international universities in North America. As you can see, we currently have around a little over 13,000 international students from 162 different countries. And that's something I really loved about my UBC journey when I was a student. Interacting with such a diverse cohort of peers helped me broaden my perspective and made me more open-minded. In terms of learning, at UBC, we encourage the active learning model. So learning goes beyond just the classroom. Our motto as a university is to a mest, which means that it is up to you. Every UBC student's journey is unique to the paths that they choose to travel during their time with us. We are a large research university. We've been consistently ranked in the top 40 research universities in the world and receive almost $500 million annually in terms of research funding. We've had over 200 spin-off companies that have had their inception at UBC. In fact, the world's first quantum computer was created on our Vancouver campus in the early 1900s. Both our campuses serve as what I call living labs. So there's a lot of innovative work, research going on in different fields, be it engineering, be it science, social sciences, business. So if research is something that you're interested in as a student, we definitely encourage our students to get involved right from year one. We also believe that learning happens everywhere. It's not restricted to the four walls of the classroom, and therefore we encourage our students to venture out into the world and and get more experiences. We offer the largest co-op program in Western Canada. So currently we have around 6,000 co-op placements across the world. So it's not necessary for our students to get placed only in BC or in Canada. They have a multitude of options, and if they want to go work in Guatemala or maybe come to India and work or go to China, that there are those options for them. We found that 90% of our students that participate in the co-op program end up getting a job within 1 month of graduation. And it's usually with those companies that they have their placement at. If they work hard, make a good impression, they are likely to be recruited full-time once they graduate. The average monthly salary for our co-op students lies anywhere between 2,000 to 3,000 Canadian dollars. So, you can gain work experience while getting a competitive salary as well. In terms of academic pathways, so we have around 261 majors across 17 different faculties. Depending on how you define popularity. So if we define popularity by the programs that receive the highest volume of applications, the majors that are housed under our Faculty of Applied Sciences, which is engineering, science, business, and arts, are the most popular, which also make them very, very competitive. However, given the kind of students we attract students that are curious and have an inquisitive mind. We've noticed a steady increase in the past couple of years in applications to our more niche programs. So those that are offered by our School of Kinesiology, Land and Food Systems, Forestry, Fine Arts and Design, we're seeing a heightened interest in those programs as well. What's great about UBC and what I also loved when I was a student is how much interdisciplinary learning is encouraged. As I mentioned earlier, we offer an active learning model. So students are encouraged, if they want to, they could pursue double majors. You can do a dual degree. You can do a major and a minor combination as well. So for example, when I was a UBC student, I got my Bachelor's of Science in Food, Nutrition and Health, but I also developed an interest in business. So I was able to do a minor through our Poddar School of Business. So a lot of academic options for you. In terms of the application to UBC, we are not part of a common app. The application to UBC is direct and pretty straightforward. The application is usually available on our website in early September, and students have until the first week of January, usually January 15th, to complete and submit the application. Subsequently, there are deadlines in February and March to submit documentation. Given the large volume of applications we receive, our deadlines are firm and must be strictly adhered to, as is the case for most competitive universities. At UBC, we also are not an early action or early decision university, so our admissions is rolling, but we encourage students to, apply at the earliest, submit all the required documents sooner rather than later. When a student applies to UBC, you will be allowed to choose a program, a broader program, or a faculty. Students typically only declare their major or specialization after completing their first or second year UBC, because we understand as a 17-year-old, you might think you want to study something, but you might change your mind. In terms of the requirements for UBC, so we have general admission requirements that all our applicants are required to meet, but faculties also have subject-specific requirements. So I would urge students to do their research. There's a lot of information regarding admission criteria on our website. So have a look at that before you apply and make sure that you're meeting the subject-specific requirements. Students are also required to meet our English language admission standard. So that's a little bit about the application process and the requirements. Shifting gears to what are we looking at, what makes a strong applicant to UBC. Our admissions office is primarily looking at academic grades to assess whether you are capable and prepared for the rigor of academics at UBC. However, we are one of the few Canadian institutions whose evaluation process is more holistic. We do believe that fit is very important to us as a university, and GPA is not the only determinant of a student's caliber. And so we have a section in our application called the personal profile section. These are 5 essay type questions that every applicant fills out. That's where we want to know more about who you are, what you're interested in, where your passion lies. If you faced any challenges, how have you overcome them? We really value students that are tenacious and perseverant and have been active learners, because they're more likely to thrive when they come to UBC. So my piece of advice is to, take your time out with those questions. Don't rush through them, and be authentic, be succinct, be unique. Because these answers are read by trained readers, multiple readers, and they play a role in not only admissions evaluation, but also evaluation for our merit-based scholarships. So look at it as the main platform to tell us more about yourself. We do not look at SOPs or recommendation letters, so please don't send that our way because it's unlikely to be read. Focus on the personal profile and use that to showcase your story and your learnings as a high school student. If anyone's wondering, we also don't require the SAT, so it's not a criteria for admissibility to UBC. As I mentioned earlier, we take pride in our diversity. We really want to support our international students. So we give out almost 25 million Canadian dollars annually in terms of scholarships. So we have merit-based scholarships for which there is no separate application process. As long as you apply by the deadline, if you are admitted as an international student, you are automatically considered for these scholarships. They range anywhere from 10,000 Canadian dollars to up to 80,000 Canadian dollars. Some students receive them as a one-time scholarship, or certain students can get 80,000 over 4 years. We've historically found that 1 in every 3 admitted international students get some sort of a scholarship. We also have need and merit-based scholarships for students that have financial need but are also meritorious. And for that, you need to be nominated by your school, and there is a separate application process and deadline. And if anyone is interested in knowing more about that, you can feel free to shoot me an email. I know I tried to, cover the vast, experience that UBC can be in a short frame of time, but there's a lot more that you can learn about the university. So I really encourage you to go on our website. There's a lot of information. Also, follow us on social media. We're very, very active. And, honestly, I think that a university is best represented through the eyes of its students. So make sure to do your research. And in case throughout this process, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. That's what I am here for. With that, I'll hand it back to Namita.
Thank you so much, Rashi and Shreya. That was great. Just give me a second while I share my screen again. And then we can get started with the questions. So great. So thanks so much for that overview. I think you gave us so much information, and I definitely learned a lot more about your universities than I already knew. So thank you for that. I think I'm going to start with, what's on a lot of people's minds. We have a lot of students that are going to be applying for fall 2021, and they're anxious, they're nervous, because obviously at the moment, things are far from normal. I think what I want you both to talk about a little bit is there anything that you're going to be perceiving or doing differently for this cohort of students, just because of the fact that there's been a lockdown? So maybe Shreya, you can start.
So I don't think it's going to be different in the sense, because we do look at academics and extracurriculars regardless of the situation. So it is going to be the overall profile that is going to be considered even now. And then we will see, because, for example, like say the IB, for example, has decided how they are going to go ahead and do the grading. So all of that for all the other boards is not being put out there yet. So it is going to be an overall profile, but we are mindful of the situation. So we will look at it and probably amend things if they need to be. But as of right now, for the fall 21 intake, there isn't a major change in what the admission requirements would be.
Okay, I think, Rashi was very clear that UBC doesn't look at letters of recommendation. Do you guys look at them?
No, we don't.
You don't look at them either?
We have a supplementary form that students do fill when they log on to the application portal. That's where they'll put in their co-curriculars and write a little bit about themselves. So that is a part of the application process, but apart from that, they don't need recommendation letters.
Okay, and what about you, Rashi, for the next cohort of students that are about to send in their applications? Is there anything that you're going to be looking at differently, or any aspect of the application that's going to have a little bit more importance than in the past years?
Yeah. So from UBC's perspective, we're going to try and be as flexible as possible in our admissions practices, so that no student is sort of disadvantaged because of COVID related disruptions. But I don't anticipate a change in the criteria. Admission to UBC will continue to be competitive, comparative, and holistic. My piece of advice to students at the moment is to remember that everyone is in the same boat. Everyone's classes are online. Everyone's facing the same frustrations. So to try and be as motivated and, innovative during this time, and to remember it's just a temporary phase. But we're going to try and be flexible while maintaining it's still going to be competitive, and grades are going to be very important.
Yeah, I think, academics is very crucial to both your institutions. You got to cope academically. I think that, we were talking about this before we started the webinar, and there's a question that's come up. So I am going to ask you guys, is your deferral process going to be the same as it has been in the past? Because I know that UBC has always been very open to allowing students to defer for a year, take a gap year, and their admission will be, can be carried on to the following academic year. But given the current situation, are they going to change the deferral policy? And if you can just talk a little bit about that, maybe Rashi, you can go first.
Yeah, sure. As you mentioned, even previously, students were allowed to defer, but there has always been an application process. So this year, it remains the same. Students will have to apply. all deferral applications will be considered, but not all will be granted. The only thing new this year is that the limited enrollment programs, such as our BCom program, they are not entertaining deferrals.
Okay, that's good. What about you? What about Ryerson, Shreya?
So it's going to be the same. The deferral policy for this year is the same, and that's not going to change as of right now. And like she said, it is going to be the application process, and there is no guarantee that they will get accepted or get through the next intake. But as of now, the policy stays the same.
Okay. So now, just because we're on the same topic of admissions, there's a couple of questions that I see on the chat, and I'm going to ask them. So, both of you mentioned that, SAT is optional, but if students submit that score, do they get any credit, or does it help them in any way? And there's also a question about getting AP and IB credit, if you guys can just quickly speak about that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to take that first. SATs are not required, but if a student has a very strong score, say 1400 up, they could add it as part of their application. Then it's up to admissions if they want to consider it, given that it's not a criteria for admissibility. In terms of IB and AP, we do offer transfer credit. If students are performing well, have a strong score in either of those curriculums, then once they send in their final results, they may receive transfer credit based on the faculty that they've applied to and the courses.
Okay.
Yeah. It stays the same for us. I think the SATs might help because the scholarships are merit-based. So for that process, like just to make it a bit more competitive for that student when you're applying for the scholarship, so probably providing your SATs at that point in time kind of might help, but there is no guarantee or assurance that is going to be the deciding factor for getting the scholarship or the admission.
Okay.
But yeah, if it's a good score, they can submit it, but that is not a requirement.
Okay, and do you guys give IB or AP credit?
Yes, we do give the credit.
Okay, that's great. And just because we're on the testing topic, there's this question that always comes up even among our students that if you have an IB student applying, do you still require them to take the English proficiency test?
So we give an exemption. So there is an online exemption form for the IB students. They can go ahead and fill that, and then that gets added to their profile when they're creating the university dashboard. After it's reviewed by the admissions officer, they will let them know if they have passed it or not.
Okay, and what about at UBC, Rashi?
One important criteria for UBC is our English language admission standards. There are currently 8 different ways that a student can meet that. If a student has done 4 years in the international curriculum, so if they've done 4 years of IB, or they've done IGCSE and followed by IB and have a strong score, they're likely to meet the requirement. Say if they've done the Indian curriculum, either the CBSE or the IB, or the ICSE, and have followed that up with IB, they're unlikely to meet the requirement, and then they would be required to take either the IELTS or the TOEFL. In case they're not willing to take that, they can request for an English language waiver, but it's important to note that that waiver is not guaranteed. So if a student does not meet our ELAS condition, we won't evaluate them at all, no matter how strong their portfolio, their grades or overall profile is. So it's quite an important requirement.
That's really good to know, Rashi, because there's always this back and forth, especially with students in India who speak, perfect English.
Yeah.
And, we always advise them to just take the test because you never know.
Yeah. We advise the same. That's always better. If not for UBC, you might need it for another university, or maybe it's a study permit application processes. So it's always best to get it out of the way.
I wanted to add on to that because we have quite a few people on our webinar who are from A-levels and American high school diploma. So besides the Indian curriculum boards, can you answer that question for them about English proficiency?
Yeah, sure. So, if a student has done 4 years in another curriculum, such if they've taken the APs and they have English, or they have done the A-levels and have English at IGCSE or at the A or AS level and have a strong score. So if they have an A or a B, they're likely to meet our requirement. But if they have anything like a C, then I would urge them to take the IELTS or TOEFL.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to move on to the next question. You both beautifully outlined, that it's competitive and that, students who have so many opportunities when they reach your campuses. But what kind of a student would really thrive at UBC and at Ryerson? Do you want to start with that, Shreya?
So I think for Ryerson, it is going to be to see when we talk about our demeanor and our tagline being at the heart of it all, it is about finding your best fit. And I'm sure as you all counsel students on a regular basis, you all do help them figuring out what their best fit is. So I think it's very important to understand what your areas of interest in terms of courses are, and then work towards figuring out which universities you would like to apply to. So the students have to, and if you've seen through the presentation, we as a university, when we talk a lot about experiential learning, so students that want to do more than just study in terms of just textbook related, education, like when we say it in India, for example. So if you are planning, if you've studied in an IB school, I think the students will understand what I'm trying to explain in terms of, imbibing the experiential learning. So students who want to take that extra step and make that extra effort towards, understanding and experiencing the world and getting them ready for the 21st century life skills and, being able to be ready for the workplace environment, that would be the kind of student that would be able to, thrive well at Ryerson.
Yeah, so similar to what Shreya spoke about, at UBC, I think a student that would do very well would be someone who's well balanced. So who's academically driven and motivated, but someone who's also curious, open-minded, adaptive, willing to be challenged and to challenge. That's quite important to us. A lot of our students also enjoy, a lot of involvement in campus life, community engagement. That's very, important. We have a strong school spirit. So a student that enjoys, a more active experience is likely to be happy and fit into the community. Another trait that, we value is students that display and demonstrate leadership potential. And the way we define leadership is broad. Leadership can come in many forms. Not every student is going to be head of, the choir or student council. But it's basically anyone that's willing to take initiative to add to our community, to really contribute to that campus life, that feel. I think that's the kind of student that would do very well. I remember when I was a student, given how diverse our student body is, I remember the commerce students being the more gregarious ones that, try to, that participate in becoming head of student council and the student body, whereas maybe the engineers were more involved in, community projects, peer mentoring, tutoring. So those are both, from UBC's perspective, both of those cohort of students demonstrate leadership and, really enjoy community work. So I think, those are the kind of students that would love coming to and thrive at UBC.
Thank you so much, Rashi. I'm just going to go back to, some of as a few academic questions that are coming up. So I'm just going to go back to that part of, the students that would do well at your universities. I know you mentioned in your presentation that, there isn't, each of the departments have their own criteria as well for admission when it comes to academically. It's a bit of a bridge between the UK and the US universities. So, someone in the audience is just asking, what is a good IB score for a student who's applying to UBC and Ryerson? So if you want to start with that, Rashi.
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned, we are competitive, but we're also comparative. So it's hard to give an exact score, given that the applicant pool defines that a lot, and also different faculties. As I mentioned, some of our most competitive faculties are engineering sciences. They would say a strong IB score, I would say, would be in the high 30s on 42, whereas say for arts, it would be mid 30s. So it would depend on the program that the student is looking at, but it's also very, very important to note that every decision at UBC is comparative to the applicant pool for that year. So in a previous year, if a student got into UBC at 35 on 42, that doesn't necessarily mean that that would remain the same that as a strong score next year. So I would say, just give it your best shot. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And what about you, Shreya?
Like she said, it is competitive. So I think it's really faculty based. So for us, I think most of our programs would be in the early 30s when you're for the IB points that you're looking at. But the engineering and the Ted Rogers School of Management, they are at the higher end of the 30s in terms of the points that you require. I think the most other very important thing that students need to keep in mind, regardless of the board that they're applying for, is to check the prerequisites for all of these programs. So for example, for the business programs, math is mandatory, and India students, if they are not doing IB, or if they're coming from, like, say, a college or from a state board where they have not done IB, commerce maths is not mandatory, so then that's where they lose out. So being able to just know that early on, if you have not taken it, you can take a virtual class online to make up for it, but just to be mindful of the prerequisites that are there for all of the programs, so that you're able to just prepare early on when you're doing your application, as versus just, cramming through it towards December and January, figuring it out. So I think that would be something to be very
That's great information, especially for our students that are not in international curricula, that that math is, I think anyway, if you want to study economics or business in any university globally, having a strong quantitative base is important. But when if you're saying that you do need the math even to apply, that's really good to know upfront and ensure that you have it in your curriculum, or that you can definitely get it done.
Also, I think another thing probably to keep in mind is students probably applying for like the arts and design faculties. Portfolios are mandatory because they are the grade plus programs. So all the requirements for the portfolios are already mentioned on the website. So if they are able to start planning their portfolios and work towards it right now, like early on in the year, it just makes it much easier for them, because once you submit your application, there is a deadline to submit the portfolio, because those applications take the longest for us to revert back, because that application is reviewed by faculty and by the admissions team. So keeping those things in mind, like students who are applying for, say, architectural science, we do offer it, but there is a portfolio component to that as well. So if you're applying to, say, film studies, has a video component that you have to send in. So keeping that in mind is kind of helpful.
And does the same apply for UBC? Are the portfolios mandatory?
Yeah, so certain programs such as our BFA and other programs do have portfolio requirements, supplemental applications. Our commerce program also has a recorded interview. And all sort of the requirements are mentioned on our website. So I would urge students to look at that. In terms of math, Shreya rightly pointed out, it is an important requirement at UBC for most faculties. So barring the faculty of arts, most of the other faculties require math at the senior level. So at the high school level.
Okay, and I mean, there's a question coming up again, regarding the grades. What about for ISC students? Like, what kind of, marks are you looking at for students to be competitive?
Mm-hmm. So again, as I mentioned, it would differ for different faculties, but generally we would consider, because they would be submitting their pre-boards to us and would receive conditional offers based on those scores. I would say anything in the high 80s, early 90s. We've been we've had Indian students apply to us for several years. So we're very well versed with the Indian curriculum. And we are aware that for a lot of the students, schools mark the internal pre-boards and prelims pretty harshly. So that students should rest assured that we're aware of that. The admissions office is, well versed with the curriculum and evaluating the various curriculums.
Thank you, Rashi. And Shreya, what kind of ISC scores are you guys looking at?
So for us, for ISC and for CBSE, you can make an application if you've got like a 75% and above. You're eligible to make an application. But then each faculty, so if you go on the website and go like program specific, it will show you what the ratio was of the students that got accepted last year. So then that will vary. So you are definitely eligible to make an application. But so for example, again, like engineering is on the higher side of the 80s and 90s in terms of getting in. Like aerospace engineering for us is one of the most competitive engineering programs that students are applying to. So that's where kind of factors in terms of faculty you're applying, but you're definitely eligible to make an application if you have a 75 and above. And your the 75 and above includes your prerequisites need to be around the ballpark of that as well. So we will see individually for those prerequisites to have those marks as well.
Okay, I think there's one very specific question that I'm going to ask now, and then I'm going to move on to some more questions about co-ops. So there's a student that's asking about, an architect. First of all, do you offer architectural design? And if you're an IB student that has taken design technology and not physics, would you be eligible to apply?
No.
Shreya?
So we do offer architectural design, and physics is mandatory.
And what about at UBC?
So we don't have a specific architecture program. We have a program that's more for students interested in design, like a liberal arts program for students with design, but not a pure architecture program.
And is physics mandatory for that or not?
No.
Okay. Hopefully that answers that question. Okay, I'm going to move on now to questions about co-ops, because I think that is really important. And Rashi, you beautifully explained this in your presentation. So actually, there's somebody in the audience asking whether you can do a co-op no matter what major you're in, and especially interested in economics. After which, can I get Shreya to also talk about whether Ryerson offers co-op, and tell us a little bit about those programs. So Rashi, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, so every faculty at UBC has its own co-op department, including, so economics is housed under the Faculty of Arts. So a student interested in economics can pursue a co-op through the Faculty of Arts. But co-op is just one of very many other options, and it's not mandatory. Apart from that, we also have sort of a centralized career services team through which students have access to other work opportunities, seminars, workshops. They help students connect with the industry. At UBC, we also have a work study program. So it's a wage subsidy program where we encourage, given that both our campuses are quite large, we encourage units on campus to hire students. So when I was a UBC student, I worked in my upper year as a residence advisor. So that was a great way for me to not only, hone my leadership skills, but also give back to the community. I sort of mentored and managed residence life in one of the first year dorms. So it's a great way, again, to be active in the community while earning pocket money. Apart from that, we also have several community-based projects. So for some majors or programs, maybe co-op is not the right route. Maybe for someone studying anthropology, going on a field term makes more sense. Through our Faculty of Engineering, we have Science Without Borders, where our undergraduate students can go to different developing parts of the world and work, real time on projects and find solutions to problems the community is facing. So apart from co-op, lots of different ways. But yes, we do have a robust co-op program. As I said, it's the largest in Western Canada.
Thanks, Rashi. I mean, you outlined it really well in your presentation. Shreya, I loved what you spoke about, the whole zone learning. I mean, that was something new. It's quite exciting. I love that.
Yes. So that is that is an extracurricular, but a very big aspect of the campus. And so it has a lot of interesting aspects. Like one of the things that they do is they have like a hackathon, and they have students just go. The idea is to have students come and participate, and you have to come and just make a 1-minute pitch, to like get dinner that day. So they like order pizza, for example, and then you come, to get you out of your comfort zone, to be able to pitch and talk to students and all of that. So you have that as an option, and some of the business programs do have co-ops in the DMZ. But apart from that, Ryerson does offer co-ops, which are optional. They are not mandatory. So if you do take a co-op, that increases the duration of your program from 4 years to 5 years. And co-ops are specifically for the engineering, science, and the business programs. All of the other programs, it is embedded in their coursework for the arts, for Faculty of Communication and Design, and for community service. So students taking, say, psychology or taking up occupational therapy or nursing, we are surrounded by 7 hospitals, and we have tie-ups with them. So students are working out of those places. And again, circling back to the location of the university, and like I mentioned, it being the financial hub and the tech center of Canada, we have tie-ups with all the big companies that are there, because the headquarters are based out of downtown Toronto. So students opting for co-ops, more often than not, if they do get a good, do a good job, their resumes are kept on file and they get hired back by that same company once they graduate. So as of last year, we had 95% of our students got placed. So that is a good number for us. We definitely take pride in ourselves, in that. But yeah, so co-ops are there, and it is about picking and choosing, and they can work on or off campus. And plus, the hourly wage being in downtown is much higher compared to being, in a campus-based university, which is further away from downtown.
Thank you. So when we're on this topic of like extracurricular activities and working in co-op, there's a question that's come up that says that, and also because you both mentioned that, your applications are very much focused on the academic grades, and then you have a section to talk about your extracurricular activities. Given the current situation, it's really hard for kids to kind of go out there and do extracurricular activities, even continue with the ones that they have been doing. So how do they kind of circumvent this? And there's another question about what extra could be done for psychology applicants. Like, what more can they do to demonstrate an interest in that field, and make you believe that they really want to study that subject? So, Shreya, do you want to go first?
So I have studied psychology myself, so I hopefully will be able to give a
lovely.
little bit.
Okay, so tell us what you did.
I went to university really long ago, so I don't even think that matters anymore. But in terms of what we would look, like I said about the supplementary form earlier, so the section where students would usually put up the activities or extracurriculars that they do at school, otherwise which might get delayed or might not happen this year. One really good thing that students can look up is Coursera, or these online certification, or just self-enhancement kind of certifications or classes that they can take for themselves, because it is not going to be about, they're not going to learn counseling. For example, if they're taking psychology, you're not going to learn the counseling or anything, but understanding the nuances of just life skills and, building their profile on that basis, because there is a lot of opportunities through that. Also, there are a few companies that offer online, I'm talking specifically to the psychology student, there is a lot of online counseling companies that are there, and they look for interns, so maybe working or trying to find out. So it really depends on your area of interest. So figuring those out, but I think like Coursera or like say even LinkedIn for right now, for the matter of fact, offers a lot of self-enhancement and life skill classes. We could probably look at those.
Yeah, so just basically up the online activity, right? And continue to read and immerse yourself in your interests, I guess, right?
That's what it's going to be for this year.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to add to that, Rashi, or about the same?
Yeah, similar. So, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, we're all in the same boat. Every student is facing the same challenge. And this is a question actually we ask in our personal profile every year. What's a challenge you faced and how you've overcome it? There is no cookie cutter answer. It's not about the answer. It's about the thought process, about, we want to understand whether you can handle challenges, whether you can be adaptable. Because at university, you might have to adapt. You might change your mind on a major. Are you going to be able to, pursue that switch? So it's more that than an activity per se. So with the personal profile questions, I always tell students, it's not about like, a student that played the guitar versus a student that likes writing poetry. It's not that one is preferred over the other. We just want to know that you are more than just your academics and that you're involved. Again, going back to the student with the question about the psychology question, I would say don't approach it as, because we see this when we read the profiles, is students tend to approach it as, what does the university want to hear? And they tend to say that. Don't approach it like that. If you love taking online classes right now, go for it. If you prefer, creating a project that you can work on in your home, do that. So just follow your passion. That's more important. I remember meeting a student from one of the schools in Mumbai, and similar, she was interested in psychology, and it was fascinating. I met her, and she had really tracked what one of the professors in our psychology department had been doing for years. And meeting her was so refreshing for me because she told me so much that I didn't know. And so that really shows that she's really not only interested in UBC, but she's interested in the program. And it didn't take much. Like, it was just her staying, really doing her research on us. that's also a beautiful example of someone who would be strong for UBC.
So these are some excellent points. I think, thank you for that. I mean, I was just looking at the questions and thought that, but I think it's just the answers are obvious, but you guys gave some great examples. I'm just gonna, there's so many questions that are coming up about, if I want to study engineering, is math mandatory? Can I do biology? Can I do this? So I don't know if we're going to get to them all, but am I right to say that all of these requirements are going to be mentioned on your website? So just encourage students and families to look it up there.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you want to do a particular type of engineering, just see whether your subjects match or not. That's good enough. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. Super. So we don't have that much time. So, I'm going to actually skip to the financial support question. You did both mention them really brief, quite, extensively in your presentations, but I know UBC allows students to be nominated for a scholarship, right? As well. Does Ryerson have that as well?
Yes, it's that is faculty specific. So once you've applied for a program and accepted the offer, then you can apply for those. But those are faculty specific. Those are not available when you're making an application.
Okay. So if you both can just quickly outline, the kind of financial support you have, and I know Rashi, you did mention that you don't have to submit an extra application or you're automatically considered, but there's no need-based aid available. Am I correct?
Not purely need-based, it's need and merit-based.
Okay, so how does that work? If you can just quickly tell us that.
Yeah, so we have 2 need and merit-based awards. So that's a full scholarship. The minimum displayed financial need you must have is about 20,000 Canadian dollars per year or anything higher than that. But apart from that, we're looking for students with extensive leadership work and involvement in the community. It's a pretty competitive award. This year, we received around over 700 applicants to these need and merit-based awards, and we chose about 40 globally, of which 3 or 4 were from India. So it's pretty competitive. What I also like to mention here that for the need and merit-based awards, as I mentioned, they're nomination-based, and a school can nominate up to 3 students per year for both these awards. 2 from our Vancouver campus, 1 to the Okanagan. What's important to note that if a student is nominated for our need and merit-based awards, if they are admitted to UBC, but they do not receive the award, they will not be considered for the automatic merit-based awards.
Okay, thank you. And what about at Ryerson, Shreya?
So we do not have a fully funded need-based scholarship that is there. Like I mentioned, the President's Scholarship is like the ones that international students are applying for. That is the highest that is there, $10,000 per year. And that is application-based, and that is very focused only on merit. But when you apply for the faculty-based ones, so those will have like a project component or will want to see your extracurriculars, and that's where you will, that's where it will be the combination of your extracurriculars and your merit academics put together, and that's where you'll get it. But there is no fully funded scholarship.
Okay. So I think, I'm going to end with this question because I think it's quite apt. We really don't have much time. We have a couple of minutes left. So maybe Shreya, if you can just share your one piece of advice to international applicants, that would be fantastic.
Apply early. So that I think would be the biggest advice, because this year, that's the one thing I've seen the most is students, apart from like for the national boards and the state boards, is that in January, they do have prelims and pre-boards, and the application deadline is the 1st of February for Ryerson. So then they are cramming, at the end, and then figuring out, they still need predicted or mark sheets, or they've not finished their English language or anything of that sort. So just apply early, be mindful of your prerequisites. And if you are taking the Grade Plus programs, that is your art and design programs, please start working on your portfolios right now. Now that you have the time, it is something that you can work on. You can keep that ready and handy for yourself, and then submit your application before the deadline. So that kind of saves you time, and you're not cramming in grade 12.
That's really great advice. Thank you. That's very practical as well. Just get on with it. And what about you, Rashi?
Yeah, I would say at the start of this whole process, don't just go based on rankings. There are very many other factors to look at when you're trying to zero in on those 6 to 7 universities that you're going to choose to apply to. Apart from that, do your research, be proactive, and take the lead on the application process. So I know, being an Indian myself, our Indian parents are very well-meaning when they take charge, but it's in the interest of the student to lead the discussions, to interact with recruiters and advisors, and really, stay on top of things, because it's a quality that will help them when they ultimately come to campus. As a university, most universities want to see their students succeed, so they have to be proactive but also vocal, and then there's a lot of support.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for joining us today in our webinar series. I think it's been a really informative session. I've learned so much about Ryerson and about University of British Columbia, and I'm sure our audiences as well. For those of you whose questions I haven't gotten to, I'm really sorry. There were so many that were just firing at me constantly. I tried to answer as many as I could, or rather get Rashi and Shreya to answer as many of them as we could. Both their email addresses are on the screen, so please note them down and feel free to reach out to either Shreya if you have any questions about Ryerson University, and Rashi if you have any questions about UBC. Thank you again, and see you both soon. Good night.
Thank you so much. Stay safe, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.